Hi everyone, and welcome to lecture 2 where we take a look at brand management. In this lecture, we're going to talk about some of the things related to managing your brand image. We're going to talk about the issues associated with developing and promoting brand names and logos. We're going to look at the concepts of brand equity versus brand parity and the importance of packaging and labels. Your brand image is very complex and will include both tangible and intangible elements. Some tangible elements would include things like the goods or services that you're selling, your retail outlets, your advertising and marketing communication, and your packaging and labeling. Intangible elements would include things like your corporate personnel, their ideals, their beliefs, how do they conduct themselves, your environmental policies, and even your corporate culture. From the consumer perspective, a strong brand image provides positive assurance to your target market members, especially when they're faced with unfamiliar settings or they have little or no previous experience with a product or service that you're selling. This helps reduce the search time that a consumer will go through when they're trying to pick a product. A strong brand image can also provide psychological reinforcement and allow people to gain social acceptance. From the company perspective, when you have a strong brand, it allows you to extend the feelings that people have to your brand onto new products or services that you're going to be offering. This can allow you the ability to charge more and to gain more customer loyalty. More customer loyalty can equal more frequent purchases from your consumers. It can gain you some positive word of mouth and greater channel power within your supply chain. It can also help you attract higher quality employees because everybody is going to want to work with your strong brand, and it can give you more favorable ratings in your industry. Creating the right corporate culture, the right corporate image and brand image is not easy. You want to make sure you create something that sends a very clear message to your consumers and portrays what the firm sells. Sometimes a company is faced with a situation where they may want to reinvent or rejuvenate their corporate or brand image. Sometimes this comes in when they may want to try and sell new products or offer new services, attract new consumers and new markets, or retain current customers. The key: remain consistent with whatever you are doing and make sure you really put in the time and effort to reinvent your image in the way that best suits your company and your target market. In rejuvenating or reinventing your corporate image, you want to make sure that you help your former customers rediscover the brand. Make sure that your former and current customers know that you're reinventing your brand in some way. Offer timeless customer value. Stay true to the original, but contemporize and modernize in some way. And try to reinvent it by building a community of support from your target market. Changing an image is not something simple, and it's something that can be very difficult for companies to achieve. It's often necessary though when target markets decline or when the products that you're offering no longer match what's going on in the industry. It requires more than advertising. It's something that has to start internally within your company and then grow your brand outwards. One of the main aspects of your corporate image is your corporate name. There are many types of corporate names, but some of the most familiar ones would include overt names, implied names, conceptual names, and iconoclastic names. You know your brand name is strong when it's easily recognizable and it's familiar to the target market. It's also successful if there's a consensual meaning from among persons who know the brand. And of course, if it evokes positive feelings, you know that you've really done something good with your corporate name. Similarly with your logo, if you have a strong logo, it aids in the recall of specific brands or products that you offer and in the recall of the ads that you may put out there for your target market. It also helps reduce the shopping effort because people are familiar with your brand and your logo, and it reduces the search time and the evaluation of alternatives for consumers. If you're ever in a position where you have to create or change a logo, remember your logo is a reflection of your corporate brand. Creating logos requires a lot of research, knowledge, and expertise, so you want to make sure that you have somebody professional designing your logo. Keep the logo simple and always make it that it can transfer from different types of media. The colors that you use are also key to your corporate image and brand. Take a look at some of the colors that we're talking about here. Look at what these colors represent. You want to make sure that the colors that you choose for your corporate image are in line with your corporate identity and your brand. Let's take a look now at some of the brands you would see in any industry. You have family brands, brand extensions, and flanker brands. Family brands are multiple products under one brand name. So for example, you will have one company, but they're selling 4 or 5 different types of detergent. Transfer association sometimes would be something that you would have to be familiar with in terms of family brands, because you want to make sure that all of the brands that you're selling are distinct in their competitive advantage or in their selling point to the consumer. You then have brand extensions, which would be a new good or service associated with a brand that you're already selling. So for example, maybe a new flavor or a new category of a product that you're selling. That's a brand extension. Flanker brands are new brands within a current category that you're selling in. Procter & Gamble is an excellent example for companies that have numerous brands in the same categories. So for example, in the cosmetics industry, they sell both CoverGirl and Max Factor. In the hair care industry, they sell Aussie products, Head & Shoulders, Herbal Essences, and Pantene. All what we would refer to as competing products in that category. Co-branding is another type of branding which is very prevalent. In terms of co-branding, you can have ingredient branding, you can have cooperative branding, and complementary branding. In developing a strong brand, you first have to start with understanding why consumers buy your brand in the first place. Where does your brand stand now? What are your objectives? What are you doing in terms of building your brand and your business? What are your brand strengths, weaknesses? What opportunities or threats do you need to be aware of? And where are the pitfalls? Building a powerful brand is also an ongoing process. You have to continually invest in your brand, create awareness, offer authenticity or uniqueness to your brand, build trust, deliver an experience that nobody else is offering, offer value, and utilize social media and mobile devices. At the end of the day, what you're trying to do is build brand loyalty. That's the ultimate objective. You want to be the only brand that customer purchases. Drivers of brand loyalty would include things like the emotional attachment that consumers have to your brand and the value, the experience that they get with your brand. What you want to avoid is the brand parity pit, as I call it. Brand parity is the concept that relates to the fact that so many brands now are similar in nature. What you want to do is build your brand equity. That's the power of your brand. You do this by building a set of characteristics that makes your brand unique. It helps fight off that brand parity, and your products or your services will be perceived as being better. Some of the common measures that companies use to measure their brand equity would include things like the financial value of their firm, the stock market value, their revenue premium, and their consumer value. One of the things that you really want to look out for now in the industry is the presence of what we call private brands. Their popularity has fluctuated over the years, and generally there's a connotation that they're in lower price or lower quality. They typically suit historically price-sensitive consumers. Retailers, however, though, are still investing a lot in private brands, and consumers see few differences between the private brands that are being offered. Over the years, though, the perception that consumers have of private labels has changed. The quality has been shown to improve a bit, and so too does the value that consumers think they're getting from these private brands. There's higher loyalty towards retail outlets and lower loyalty towards specific brands. It was often used to differentiate retail outlets, but that's not the case anymore. They have some of the big name retail outlets do their own private labels. There has been an increase in advertising of the private brands that these retailers are selling. There's increased quality of in-store displays and packaging of these private brands. For retailers, private labels allows them to gain higher gross margins and lower their prices. It allows them to get greater loyalty to stores and brands within the store. It differentiates the stores from national brands. And for example, stores like JCPenney, their private labels bring in a lot of money for the company. When you think of private labels locally, if you ever go to stores like Massey and you see that IGA brand or that IGA group of products, those are private products or private labels. To fend off the attacks of the private brands, some companies, again, their focus sometimes changes to establishing more their core brands and core products. They increase their advertising or introduce new products. They focus on a lot of in-store selling and packaging, or they use alternative methods of marketing to fend off the attraction of these private brands. Packaging is another key aspect of your corporate brand. It's your final opportunity to make an impression on that consumer because 69% of purchase decisions are made in store. Consumers have 3 seconds, or as the business owner, you have 3 seconds to catch the attention of that consumer. So your packaging has to stand out. It must also tell the customers what is inside. Your packaging serves many purposes. First of all, it's to protect the product. It's to provide for ease of shipping and handling. It's to provide of easy placement on shelves to make sure that you can put as much of your product on that shelf as possible. You don't want to waste shelf space. It can also help, or it should also be, to prevent or reduce theft, to prevent tampering, to meet consumer needs for speed, convenience, and portability, and to communicate your brand and your marketing message. In terms of the labeling for your packaging, you want to make sure that it meets all legal and country requirements, and what ways are you using your labeling as a marketing opportunity. QR codes are being added now to a lot of packaging and labeling, and it's allowing consumers to access product information or videos on how to use products. You can access recipes and nutritional information, compare sizes, brands, and styles of the product, access product reviews and ratings, and even allows you to access links to social media and entertainment sites related to that product. Ethical issues related to corporate and brand management will of course include infringing upon your brand, what to do when your brand name becomes a generic term, and domain or cyber squatting. In terms of international implications on your brand, you would of course come up with the debate of whether you need to adapt your brand to the foreign market or whether you're going to standardize. Of course, standardization reduces costs. You also have to look at whether it's a high profile, high involvement line of products. In this case, if it's a global brand, you want to pay attention to that. Low involvement products, if it's a local brand, something that's sold on a more local level. Packaging and labeling issues from country to country, and of course image and positioning issues. To To end off this week's lecture, when you download your slides, click on the links that you see here on the blog exercises and take a look at some of the exercises here. For questions on this week's lecture, please feel free to leave those questions in the discussion forum so that we can discuss as a class.